Hello, Internet, and welcome to Quiz and Hers, the trivia podcast where we test each other's knowledge and the strength of our relationship in a 10-week battle for trivia glory. My name is Justin, and I am here with my fiancé and competition, Hallie.
Hi.
Hi.
What's up?
Not much. Doing a podcast. What's up with you?
Same.
All right. If you're new to the show, each week one of us writes 6 trivia questions to ask the other person from each of our 6 categories, which are arts and literature, sports and games, times and places, sounds and screen, science, and everything else. Each week, all 6 questions are united by some theme to which they all relate, and after each question, the person who wrote it will have a discussion prepared of about 5 minutes or so that we can all learn a little bit more and hopefully get a little better for our local pub quiz or our appearances on Jeopardy or whatever your quizzing poison may be.
I have a question.
Yes?
You know how you say sounds and screen and I say sounds and screens?
Yes, officially it is not plural.
I just decided that I think I'm right because it's talking about the big screen and the small screen. Get it? I just figured out why I'm right.
You're not.
I am.
Well, the logo says it's singular because I designed the logo because you don't know how to use image editors.
But it makes more sense, right? Screens, multiple types of screens.
Yeah, but you talk about, the legends of screen and the,
And the legends of sounds?
Well, no, that's for the alliteration, obviously.
So it could be sound and screen?
All right, let's do this off air.
Okay.
Okay. Anyway, current score is 2 correct answers apiece after 2 games into Season 4, and it is my turn to ask the questions. Are you ready, Hallie?
I'm ready.
Okay. So, today's game is titled Mr. and Mrs. Irrelevant, because all 6 questions will have to do with an event that will have just wrapped up when this comes out, one of my absolute favorite weekends of the year, the NFL Draft.
Oh.
So the draft this year...
Wait, what does that title have to do with the draft?
Mr. Irrelevant is the title or the nickname of the last person taken in the draft.
Oh, that's so mean.
It is mean. It is also very, very true because basically it means you're no better than an undrafted free agent and your odds of actually making the team that drafted you are about as good as an undrafted free agent. So...
Oh. But hey, you got drafted.
You can always hang your hat on the fact that you got drafted when you're selling used cars in Cleveland.
That's so mean.
So, yes, that is why it is called Mr. and Mrs. Irrelevant.
Who's the missus?
You.
Oh, thank you.
Okay. I was relating it to the quiz and hers.
I gotcha.
Yes, the couple dynamic we have on the podcast.
I gotcha.
And off the podcast.
Yeah, that too. Don't forget about that.
All right, let's do this. Ready?
Yep.
All right, question 1, sports and games, obviously. One of the most notable trades in draft history happened in 2004 when the San Diego Chargers drafted a quarterback with the first overall pick. He refused to play for San Diego, so they traded him to the New York Giants for another QB, whom they had drafted 4th overall. Name both of these now veteran signal callers.
I'm supposed to name the quarterbacks for the Giants and the Chargers?
That is ultimately what this question is.
Well, then, I have 2 people in mind. The first person.
Yes.
Who plays for the New York Giants.
Yes.
To this day. I'm
Yes.
going to say it. Eli Manning.
That is one half of the answer.
The second person who plays for the Chargers.
The now Los Angeles Chargers, but at the time San Diego Chargers.
Oh, God, I hope it's right. I'm going to be really embarrassed if it's wrong.
Yeah, you will.
Is it one Phillip Rivers?
It is one Mr. Philip J. Rivers.
Woohoo!
I don't know if that's actually his middle initial. It just sounded good. Yes. So...
Thank you for targeting the exact sports knowledge that I have.
Well...
And the entirety of the sports knowledge I have is
which is
NFL quarterbacks.
The modern day NFL, yes. Yeah, so... Well, I was the theme is the draft. I had to ask something about the NFL for
of course,
for the sports and games question. Yeah. So this is one of the strangest, most dramatic stories from the history of an event that is known for strange drama. The Chargers held the first overall pick in 2004 after finishing the 03 season with a dreadful record of 4-12. Drew Brees was their quarterback at the time, and he was not putting up the kinds of performances that he is known for today in New Orleans. So the San Diego front office were looking for a new QB to turn the team around.
It's so interesting how a player can be so bad with one team and then go to another team and just be amazing.
Yeah, it really does speak to like how the culture of the front office and the coaching and the locker room really matters a lot. And, you know, there's also just issues of like... Yeah, right. You know, how well do you gel with your teammates? There's just how well do you fit the culture of the team? Like, yeah, there's a lot of variables there for sure.
Yeah.
So leading up to the draft, Eli Manning was the most highly touted quarterback prospect that year coming out of Ole Miss. But Manning had made it very clear that he had no desire to play for the Chargers and threatened to sit out the entire season if they drafted him. He even famously stated that he would rather go to law school than play in San Diego, which was his backup, I guess, if he didn't get drafted number 1 overall, even though everyone knew he was going to.
It's not a bad backup plan.
Not at all.
It's not what did you say? Selling used cars in Cleveland?
Yeah, well, yes, that's true. So when draft day rolled around, the Chargers drafted him anyway. What ultimately happened was they traded him to the Giants for NC State's Phillip Rivers, the 4th overall pick, as well as a 3rd-round pick that year, and 1st and 5th-round picks the following year. It isn't entirely clear, though, if this deal was in place before the Chargers selected Eli, or if it was hammered out during the first round. But either way, that's what ended up happening.
I have a question.
Yes?
Or a comment.
Yes?
I feel like you're assuming a lot about our listeners' knowledge about the NFL draft.
How do you mean?
Like, do people know what that means? Like, they traded them for these picks and, like, I don't know. Is this involved? I guess it's in every sport. But, like, what if they don't like sports? What if they don't know? No?
All right.
Am I wrong?
Brief digression then.
Don't you think?
Fair enough. So I'll do this off the top of my head.
It's quick.
Then. Yeah.
I mean, it's not much to say.
The NFL draft, officially known as the National Football League Player Selection Meeting, is an annual event in which college prospects who played football in college are chosen by teams who are bringing them into the NFL. And so basically the way it works is if you're coming out of college, you declare for the draft. That means you make basically public your intention to become a professional football player. Then the teams that had the worst records in the previous season have the first or the earlier picks in the draft. So the worst team in the league gets to pick the first player in the draft. The draft is 7 rounds. First round players are generally highly touted superstars. 6th and 7th round players are generally lottery tickets, essentially. People that your team believes in that other people don't, right? That's basically what happens. But in addition to having this picking order based on your record, you can also trade picks, or you can trade players. So if you have a player on your roster, you could use that as trade bait to move up and get a better pick in the first round, for example, if you wanted to. That has happened where teams have traded away their starting quarterback to draft a rookie quarterback. That's a thing that happens on occasion. So that's,
really?
Yeah.
Oh.
So that's part of the strategy. And basically what it means is that team has the rights to the rookie contract for that player. So the player can only sign with that team. So what was basically happening in 2004 was Eli was threatening if the Chargers drafted him, he just wouldn't sign his rookie contract, and he just wouldn't play for them. But so they traded him for Phillip Rivers and a bunch of picks.
Thank you.
Okay, yeah. It's also interesting to note here that if this deal, Manning for Rivers, didn't get done, the Giants were going to take Ben Roethlisberger, not Phillip Rivers.
Really?
Yes, so they took Rivers because the Chargers wanted him, basically. Like, they drafted a quarterback that they thought would be attractive to the Chargers so that they could trade for Manning.
Uh-huh.
And so Roethlisberger, of course, ended up going to the Pittsburgh Steelers at the 11th overall pick.
11th? Ha
Yes.
ha. Sorry.
Okay. Yes, as Ravens fans, we strenuously dislike Ben Roethlisberger.
Yeah.
But
I'm glad he didn't go to the Giants.
because your family are Giants fans, fair enough.
Yeah.
He's a good player. Like, I will certainly give him that, but I could see why
like
he went.
him.
No, I don't either. But I can see why he went in the first round. Like, he's a very good quarterback for sure.
Yes, he's still good.
Yeah. So this trade shaped the landscape of the NFL for well over a decade. Manning has won 2 Super Bowls with the Giants, whereas Rivers hasn't won any. And don't forget, if not for the trade, Big Ben would probably never have suited up in Pittsburgh. So that's 3 future Hall of Fame quarterbacks whose careers were all shaped by this unusual bit of draft day drama.
You think they'll all make the Hall of Fame?
Absolutely they will.
Even though Phillip Rivers hasn't won anything?
He's like one of the best statistical quarterbacks ever, though.
Yeah, he's really good.
He's amazing, especially in the regular season. He doesn't do well in the playoffs when he gets the chance. It's notable that even despite all the media attention surrounding the deal, we still don't really know why it happened in the first place. There was speculation at the time that Eli's father, Archie Manning, felt that San Diego would not be a good fit for his younger son, and had told Eli to play hardball. In fact, Chargers general manager A.J. Smith publicly blamed Archie for the situation.
Wow.
Yeah. But in a 2016 interview, he stated that he didn't tell Eli to do anything, and simply told him to, quote, think hard about his decision. It has also been argued that the Chargers' disastrous recent history with their quarterbacks was the reason for Eli's ultimatum. They had drafted Ryan Leaf with the 2nd overall pick in 1998. Leaf went on to start just 18 games for San Diego, posting a dismal record of 4-14.
Wow.
Yeah, and gaining notoriety for his immature behavior off the field. Leaf happened to be friends with Eli's older, more talented brother Peyton. It's true.
I know.
And allegedly told him that the Chargers gave him no help in adjusting to the NFL, basically leaving him to figure his shit out for himself. Peyton may or may not have passed this information on to Eli. We don't know any of that for sure, but there's no denying that Leaf was a failure of rare proportions, and it is also true that Drew Brees struggled in San Diego in the 2 years leading up to the 2004
Did they
draft.
draft him?
Brees? Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they did.
Okay.
Unfortunately, we will probably never know for sure why this famous bit of wheeling and dealing happened. When Eli was asked in a 2013 interview why he didn't want to play for the Chargers, he answered simply, I forgot.
That's so Eli Manning.
It really is, yeah.
To just be like, moving on.
Yeah, exactly.
But also, you know what I was just thinking? Like, if Drew Brees didn't do well with the Chargers, and then considering that Phillip Rivers has done, like, decently with the Chargers, like, he could be a better quarterback than Drew Brees. We just don't know.
Yeah, I mean, there were also changes to the coaching staff in the front office. Like, it wasn't just him.
Okay.
But yeah, like...
But you don't know.
Well, I mean, from a physical standpoint, he is more of what you want in a prototypical quarterback. He's taller, he's more physical, right? Brees is just so smart and so lightning accurate.
Yeah.
That it doesn't matter that he's like 5'4" or whatever. He's not 5'4", but he's not big for an NFL player. So
yeah,
I think he's like 5'9" or something.
I don't know. He looks short out there, but who knows?
Yeah, exactly. He's not a big dude. He's not like the physical.
I'm sure he's
prototype.
taller than me.
Yeah, well, yeah.
I'm not short.
No, you're not.
But
I mean, you're short for an NFL player.
Yeah, I'm pretty short for an NFL player.
All right, question 2 then. Times and places. The 2015 and 2016 drafts were held in Chicago's Auditorium Theater, across the street from what historic park, which is named for a president and hosted a draft-themed fair?
I know. I think. Well, I only know 2 parks, and only one of them is the name of a president.
Mm-hmm.
Is it Grant Park?
It is Grant Park.
I love Grant Park. Wait, I've been to Grant Park, right?
Yeah.
Or is it Millennium Park that I love?
Millennium Park is part of Grant Park, actually.
Oh, that's why I get confused. It's a very nice park.
It's great. Yeah, I mean, it's basically Chicago's like version of Central Park.
Yeah.
Except there's green space all over Chicago, not just in one place.
They have like these sculptures that they don't have really in Central. Well, I guess they have it.
Yeah, they do. Yeah.
I don't know. It just feels more open. Central Park, I guess, has more like trees or something.
Yeah.
And also like you're right near the lake and...
Yeah, I'll talk about it. It's the best.
We love Chicago. Remember we went to that food festival?
Taste of Chicago. I'm going to mention that.
Oh,
actually,
okay. Sorry.
yeah.
Go ahead.
Very briefly. But
I'm spoiling everything.
Yeah. I lived in Chicago for 3 years for work, and yeah, it's great. It's
and
an
I
awesome
visited
city.
a lot.
Yeah. All right. So, popularly known as Chicago's front yard, Grant Park is a large urban park located in the Windy City's downtown neighborhood known as the Loop. It dates to the city's founding, when the land east of Michigan Avenue was designated as public land, never to be developed. It was officially named Lake Park in 1844.
Very creative.
Yeah, well. After the Great Chicago Fire of 1871, a lot of the debris was dumped into Lake Michigan as a landfill, increasing the parkland. The legal regulations banning buildings on the parkland were largely ignored during the 19th century because, well, it was the 19th century. Back then, laws were more like guidelines.
Suggestions,
yes. Various civic buildings, including an armory, a post office, and even an early home venue for the baseball team then known as the Chicago White Stockings, now known as the Chicago Cubs, were built in the park. The team now called the White Sox are, oddly enough, unrelated.
Wait, really?
They were an American League team who took the Cubs' former name.
This whole time?
Nope.
This whole time I thought they were the ones that came from the White Stockings.
Nope.
Wow.
Yep. Anyway, Chicago businessman Aaron Montgomery Ward, founder of the eponymous department store chain, fought for the park throughout the 19th century. He stood up to local politicians and took the city to court on 4 separate occasions to keep Lake Park undeveloped. He did, however, agree to the Art Institute of Chicago being built in the park in 1892. In 1901, Lake Park was renamed Grant Park in honor of Ulysses S. Grant, who had been nominated as the Republican presidential candidate in Chicago in 1868. In 1909, the famous Plan of Chicago by pioneering architects and city planners Daniel Burnham and Edward H. Bennett included the park with the new Field Museum of Natural History as its crown jewel.
I've been there. Wait, no.
No, we didn't do the field. That was the one place we didn't end up.
Damn.
The field's expensive, it turns out, actually.
Didn't you go there with your parents?
I don't know, maybe. I went with work colleagues once, I think.
Oh.
I don't know. Anyway.
I have to go back there.
More landfill was added in the early 20th century, further expanding the park into Lake Michigan and providing the spaces for the Adler Planetarium and the Shed Aquarium.
That I've been to.
Yes, which, along with the Field Museum, make up what is now known as the Museum Campus. The most recent renovation transformed unused rail yards and parking lots into Millennium Park, which has been called Chicago's most important public works project since the Columbian Exhibition of 1893. Millennium Park includes the ultra-modern sculpture called Cloudgate, popularly referred to as the Bean, by Indian-born British artist Sir Anish Kapoor.
I really thought it was just called the Bean.
No, it's called Cloudgate, but everybody calls it the Bean.
That's good to know.
Yeah. Lake Park/Grant Park has been the site of numerous civic events. It was the site of Chicago's 1865 funeral procession for Abraham Lincoln. Queen Elizabeth II disembarked at Grant Park in 1959, giving the Queen's Landing area its name.
Disembarked from what?
From the ship bringing her from Britain to Chicago.
How? How can a ship bring you from Britain to Chicago?
That's a good question, now that I think about it.
That seems like I'm pretty sure that's not possible.
That is true, actually. I'm not sure. I didn't think of that as I was reading about this.
There's no way it was a ship. She disembarked from the train that she took from New York, where she disembarked.
Maybe, but I don't know, actually. I didn't think of that as I was reading, but that's how Queen's Landing got its name.
I'm not sorry,
sure.
I'm fine.
Okay.
That's very funny. I wonder.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
You just assumed.
It didn't even occur to me. Well, because it gets on the water, so I just figured,
it's a lake.
I know.
Sorry. Okay, I'm done.
Okay. Police clashed with demonstrators in the park during the 1868 Democratic National Convention. Pope John Paul II celebrated a mass in the park in 1979. Championship celebrations for the Bulls in the 90s, the Blackhawks in 2013, and the Cubs in 2016 were all held in the park. President Barack Obama gave his victory speech there on Election Day in 2008. Each year, the park hosts the Taste of Chicago Festival, the Lollapalooza Music Festival, and serves as the start and finish lines of the Chicago Marathon. And in 2015, Grant Park was the site of the first NFL draft to be held outdoors. And I was there for the 2016 draft, and it was honestly just the best. It was so much fun.
That's cool. Yeah. I haven't been to a draft. What do they call it? A draft town?
Yeah, it was like a fair where like they were showing the draft on these huge screens, and they had like food and music.
Because they had it in New York.
Oh, yeah.
Not that long ago. Maybe right before. Where is it now?
It's moving from city to city now. I think this year's is LA, but don't quote me on that. That might not be right. I think it's LA though.
I have no idea. This is not something I follow.
I mean, I follow the schedule and the prospects. I don't know. I don't pay too much attention to where it is unless it's in my city, which
It's not.
it is not. All right, so you are 2 for 2.
Yes, I am.
Nice. All right, question 3, science. This is one of my stretchier science questions, to be honest with you.
I've been hearing.
Yeah, well.
I don't know what it is.
Well, actually,
but I'm thinking it's probably not really science.
Yeah.
Okay.
I had to change my science question like 3 times to find something that I was actually happy with. So, and even this I'm not that happy with. But science is a really hard category.
Like what are you going to talk about? How are you going to relate science to the NFL?
Exactly. Science is a very hard category when you're doing a sports-themed game.
You know what you should have done?
Please tell me what I should have done.
The science of concussions.
That has nothing to do with the draft.
I know, but it's football-y enough.
Well.
All right, well, it's too late.
All right. Question 3, science. The draft is when the NFL relies most heavily on the methods of data science, but American football has been slower to adopt analytics than other sports. In other words, the NFL does not yet have an equivalent to what empirical, data-driven approach to building a baseball team, which gets its name from the Society for American Baseball Research.
Say that last thing. The Society for American Baseball Research?
That is right. That's where the name comes from. The name for this data science approach to baseball.
I'm thinking it's not Moneyball.
That is like a nickname for it, but that's not actually what it's called.
So partial credit.
No.
My other thought is to say it's something called Saber something because that's what the acronym is.
Okay.
Sure. Why not?
What?
Saber.
Very close, actually.
Sabe or Moneyball? I don't know. I deserve credit for this.
No, you don't.
Fine. What is it?
It's called sabermetrics.
Oh, come on, man. Okay. I think I deserve credit because for someone who didn't know the answer, I pieced that together very well. I think I deserve credit.
No, you didn't get it right. And if you piece together saber, you should probably have heard the term sabermetrics
I
and
have
gotten there.
not.
Well, you have.
I've heard of Moneyball.
You've also heard sabermetrics because I'm pretty sure they say that word in that movie more than once.
That was a very long time ago when I saw that in theaters. So
you should have it in the back of your head.
It was not there.
Okay.
But I was proud that I got halfway there.
Okay.
Fine. This is not science.
It's data science.
Okay.
It's like analytics, statistics, econometrics, that kind of thing.
I thought that was math.
It's math, it's science. I mean, physics is just as much math as this.
Should have talked about concussions.
Okay. Whatever.
It's fine.
For this discussion, I'm basically going to talk about data science in sports. These scientific approaches to roster construction go by many names: analytics, advanced metrics, Moneyball, or even just statistics, though that term obviously has a much broader meaning. But in baseball, the accepted term is sabermetrics. Sabermetric analyses can involve simple statistics like batting average, but more commonly use newer, less intuitive stats like on-base percentage, slugging average, and wins above replacement. On-base percentage, in particular, was an important innovation that takes into account the total amount of times a player gets on base, no matter how. The idea is, getting on base gets you runs, and runs get you wins. You can use this statistic to build predictive models that predict the total runs, and thus the total wins, that a team should accumulate over the course of a season. The term sabermetrics was coined by Bill James, a baseball historian and statistician, an early pioneer and advocate for the scientific analysis of the game, and one of Time's 100 most influential people of 2006. That's cool.
Yeah.
James is currently a senior advisor of baseball operations for the Boston Red Sox. James also influenced Paul DePodesta, who was hired by Oakland Athletics general manager Billy Beane.
That's Moneyball.
Yes, their story, chronicled in the book and film Moneyball, brought sports analytics into the mainstream consciousness. DePodesta has been a front office assistant for the Cleveland Indians, the A's, of course, and the New York Mets, and is currently the chief strategy officer for the NFL's Cleveland Browns, which is perhaps a sign that football is hopping on the analytics bandwagon.
And they're desperate.
They are also very desperate, yes. It may also not be a sign that they're getting on the bandwagon. We'll come back to that.
Okay.
But yes, also the Browns will just try anything because they can't draft.
Right.
Sorry, Browns fans, but it's true.
They're getting better.
I mean, on paper, they should be great. And yet they consistently have the number 1 overall pick in the draft.
I think they're going to get better.
Yeah, I think they'll actually be, okay this year.
Yeah.
But we'll see. Basketball has its own equivalent scientific discipline called APBR APBR metrics, named for the Association for Professional Basketball Research Metrics.
It doesn't sound as good.
No, it does not. There are a couple of unique tenets to basketball analytics. First, since teams basically alternate possessions, most team statistics are calculated per possession or per 100 possessions, as in the case of the so-called offensive rating and defensive rating, which basically amounts to the number of points scored per 100 possessions as a team, or the number of points allowed on the defensive side, right? Second, player statistics are calculated by minute rather than by game, because per game numbers are skewed by the amount of playing time that a player gets, right? So if you play more time in a game, you're going to both make more shots in that game and miss more shots in that game.
But wait, does that apply to baseball too?
It's more true in basketball because in baseball there's less substitution.
Right.
Right, in basketball, you're swapping out players a lot, particularly your 6th man on your bench will come in sometimes, right?
Mm-hmm.
So your superstar is going to be on the court most of the game, and your 6th guy is only going to be in for some of it, right?
Right.
Yeah, so if you're only in for part of the game as opposed to someone who's in for a lot of it, you're going to make fewer shots in that game, but you're also going to miss fewer shots, right?
Right.
You're going to have fewer points, but also fewer fouls, right? So it's all of this is just mechanically a product of how long you're on the court.
Right.
So that's why player statistics are calculated by minute, not by game. So those observations both seem totally obvious when you say them like that. But James Naismith invented basketball in 1891, and the NBA was established in 1946. But per-possession statistics didn't become popular until the 1990s, when statisticians Dean Oliver and John Hollinger brought them to the attention of basketball fans. So despite how obvious it seems that you should be calculating team statistics by possession and player statistics by minute, that's only really been happening for 25 years-ish.
Wow.
Which is crazy, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Hockey has been almost as slow as football to adopt analytic approaches, though the NHL has embraced the so-called Corsi statistic, which is a complex metric that accounts for shots on goal, misses, and blocked shots. The Corsi statistic is a fairly new innovation, and it is considered the single most informative number in hockey.
What about soccer?
I didn't look into soccer. I'm just talking about the big 4 North American sports.
Okay.
As I mentioned, football has been the slowest of the big 4 to embrace data scientific methods. There have been a lot of explanations for this, ranging from football managers are crusty old men stuck in their ways, to football is the game with the most happening on any given play, the most people on the field, and the fewest games in a season.
Right.
So there's just too much variance for it to be of any real use.
Uh-huh.
Whatever the explanation, analytics firm Pro Football Focus sells their data-driven player grades to almost every team in the NFL, and players' college stats and the scouting combine provide mountains of data leading up to the draft. But old-school scouting still pretty much reigns supreme, at least for now.
Even for the Ravens?
Well, so there are some teams who are more analytically minded than others. So the Ravens, the Eagles, the Patriots, they're all known for being pretty analytics heavy. The Giants in particular are known for being very old school. And most other teams are kind of somewhere in the middle. But, I mean, the biggest thing, close... Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I think recently you can tell that the teams who are
good
doing the analytics maybe are on the right track.
Agreed. Absolutely agreed.
Not that the Giants haven't done well, but not so recently.
Not recently. Well, they're also stubbornly committed to a quarterback who isn't very good anymore.
Aww.
Sorry, Eli.
You were good.
Yeah, won 2 Super Bowls.
Yeah.
Somehow.
I think he's pretty good. I mean, I think he was good back then.
Yeah.
He's struggling now.
Yeah, I mean, the closest equivalent to Moneyball type stuff in the NFL, and like the most well accepted version, is in the draft. You don't win the draft by making the best picks. You win the draft by making the most picks.
Oh.
Because the earlier a player goes, the more likely it is that he will be successful, but it is not a perfect correlation by any stretch.
And also, like, players get hurt.
Players get hurt. There are highly touted first-round prospects who just completely flop. There are late-round nobodies who end up being all-stars. And so you win a draft, and this is what the Ravens do, and this is part of why I love the draft so much, is watching the strategy of these different front offices and how they approach it. But you win a draft by making the most picks, because the more picks you make, the more likely it is that at least some of them are going to really pay off in the long term.
Right. So do they have to then let go the most players?
You mean to make their roster?
Yeah.
Well, so you don't have to sign every player you draft. So if you bring a player into training camp and it turns out you don't like them, you can just cut them and save the roster space. That's why you start out in the training camp with a 90-man roster and you eventually have to cut it down to 53. You can try out a bunch of players before you have to finalize your roster.
Okay.
So, yeah. But on average, yes, they have to get rid of more players in order to make space for the new guys. Okay. Well, that brings us to halftime. This is a long episode. Jesus Christ. Anyway.
Halftime. How appropriate.
Yes, indeed. So this is where we take a minute in the middle of the show just to thank you guys for listening and tell you that if you like the show, it really does help us out if you like and subscribe, and if you leave us a rating and a review on your preferred podcast platform. It really does help us gain some more exposure and get the word out about the show, or just tell a friend you know who likes learning stuff. That's also really helpful.
Yep.
And we also like to remind you at this point that we are on all podcasting platforms that we are aware of. If we're not on yours, definitely get in contact with us, and you can do that by email. We are quizandhers@gmail.com. Also, remember to follow us and interact with us on social media. We are at quizandhers on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And I guess that's all.
We're on YouTube.
I always forget to say that.
I'm just here to tell everyone that we're on YouTube.
I never remember that we're on YouTube, even though it's my job to upload the videos.
That's just
I just
me.
Don't remember. I don't know.
It's the reason why I sit here, to tell everyone that we're on YouTube.
All right. Well, yes, we are on YouTube. All our episodes are on YouTube, so you can check us out there as well.
Yep.
Now back to our regularly scheduled program. All right. Question 4. Everything else. The NFL's drafting procedures have occasionally come under scrutiny as restricting players' autonomy, but the league has argued that since they are agreed on in collective bargaining between the Players Association and the league, they are not in violation of what Antitrust Act named for an Ohio senator?
Glass-Steagall.
No.
I literally say that for everything because I don't know what
Every
it is.
law question.
I don't know what it is.
It's not right.
I think
No.
we need to talk about it because I don't know what it is.
Okay.
Name for Ohio senator. Antitrust. I don't know.
Was Glass-Steagall not your answer?
I mean, even if it was, and you told me no, I figured I'd give it another try.
Okay.
Not that maybe you
That's
wouldn't.
not fair. but
Okay, maybe you wouldn't give me credit for the second try, but I thought maybe I'd try.
All right. No, it's the Sherman Antitrust Act.
Oh, I've heard of this.
Yes, you have. You definitely have.
I should have thought longer before blurting out Glass-Steagall because I just panicked.
Probably. The Sherman Antitrust Act of 1890 is the cornerstone of U.S. antitrust law and is easily one of the most asked about laws in trivia. It was introduced by Ohio Senator John Sherman with the intention of preventing concentrations of economic power that unduly affect trade and limit fair economic competition, and, when necessary, to break them apart where they already existed. At the time, large corporations, then commonly referred to as trusts, were the subject of much public mistrust. See what I did there?
Yep.
I'm very pleased with that. The Sherman Act has 3 sections, the first of which makes trusts and other conspiracies aimed at restraint of trade illegal. Section 2 explicitly bans monopolies and any attempts to form them. Interestingly, these sections are actually worded in such a way that they only apply if the trusts or monopolies affect interstate or international commerce, in order to make the law compliant with the Constitution. which permits Congress to regulate trade among the states or with foreign nations, but not trade within a particular state. That is known as the Commerce Clause, and it comes to us in Article 1, Section 8. Anyway, Section 3 of the Sherman Act merely extends Section 1 to Washington, D.C. and U.S. territories, and rarely comes up in trivia. Despite the law's passage in 1890, it was rarely invoked by the courts except to break up labor unions, which was very much not the point of the law. The courts at the time were largely conservative and took a very narrow view of what counted as interstate commerce. Theodore Roosevelt became the first president to actually enforce the act as it was intended. He sued 45 companies under the act, earning him the nickname the Trust Buster.
Oh, I've heard of that.
Yeah. And his successor, William Howard Taft, sued 75 companies. Perhaps the most notable application of the Sherman Act in this period was the court-mandated dissolution of Standard Oil, John D. Rockefeller Sr.'s monopolistic oil conglomerate. Standard Oil was broken into multiple smaller companies that would compete with each other. In 1914, under Woodrow Wilson, Congress passed 2 additional laws to give the Sherman Act some teeth. The Clayton Antitrust Act, which specified what kinds of business practices were held to be unfair and therefore illegal, and clarified that the Sherman Act did not apply to labor unions, thank you very much. And the Federal Trade Commission Act, which, as its name suggests, established the FTC to police businesses. The Sherman Act has not often been used lately, though in 1984 the American Telephone and Telegraph Company, better known as AT&T, was forced to break up, with the parent company providing long-distance phone service, and local subsidiaries splitting off to compete with one another. These subsidiaries came to be known as Regional Bell Operating Companies, or Baby Bells.
Ha.
Cute.
So cute.
There were 7 of them, but several have since merged back together, leaving only Verizon, CenturyLink, and the modern incarnation of AT&T. Microsoft was also nearly forced to break up in 1999 when a court found that bundling Internet Explorer with Windows was aimed at creating a monopoly on Internet browsers.
That didn't work.
No, it did not. Well, so the decision was overturned, but also Chrome.
But also, they still do.
And no one uses it because it's terrible.
Exactly.
But now you just go and you download another browser. Back when the internet was much slower, that was not an easy thing to do.
But they do bundle it. Edge, whatever they call it.
Edge now, but yeah. Well, like I said, the decision was overturned in 2001, and so Microsoft didn't end up breaking apart. But the original ruling said that they would have to split into an internet browser company and an operating system company.
Interesting. But they didn't.
No, because the decision was overturned by a higher court 2 years later.
I mean, now with like the way that technology companies work, that would be really hard to do because like, I don't know, they all seem to have like multiple aspects going on.
Well, they do.
Like Facebook and Facebook Messenger or something.
Yeah. Well, there has been talk that the Sherman Act should be used to force like Google to break up. And like, so you would split off Google Maps and Gmail and Google Drive from the search engine company.
There's a lot.
I know. Well, so, no case has been brought like this before, but there has been some suggestion that maybe it should be to limit the power of these tech companies and increase competition among them.
Yeah, Google doesn't have a ton of competition.
Well, no, they don't. But imagine like how much more competition there would be for the webmail sector, right? If Gmail wasn't automatically integrated with Google Drive and the Google search engine and Google Maps and everything else.
Calendar.
Right? Calendar, exactly. Like
That's
if Gmail was just Gmail, imagine how much new innovation there could be in webmail.
Yeah.
Right? But Google just owns it right now.
This is why I'm still upset that I have to use Outlook for my school email.
Outlook is terrible. I've had to use it. It's horrible.
I mean, I wouldn't want to use anything over Gmail, I guess, because of this.
Because of the way it is bundled with everything else.
Yeah.
Pro sports leagues are mostly exempt from antitrust legislation for somewhat weird and incoherent legal reasons that I don't have time to talk about. Today, the NFL basically exists as a legal monopoly as long as it doesn't directly compete with high school and college football. But a 2010 Supreme Court ruling referred to the league as a cartel, composed of 32 colluding businesses that was subject to antitrust law. The 32 businesses being the independently owned teams, of course.
Right.
So its exempt status may not last forever. But then again, if a court ever ordered the NFL to break apart into multiple smaller competing leagues and upended the draft as we know it, football fans would fucking riot.
Yeah. And there are a lot of them.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's a legal monopoly that is completely ingrained in the fabric of American society. So,
you can't do that to us.
Yeah, surely they're not that dumb.
Surely.
All right, question 5.
Okay.
So you are 2 for 4 now.
Okay.
You should have gotten the Sherman Act.
Yeah, I should have.
I know. Okay.
I panicked. That's what I say when I panic. Glass-Steagall.
Don't panic.
I'm going to have to talk about Glass-Steagall one day.
You should.
Okay.
All right, question 5, arts and literature. To promote last year's draft, the NFL commissioned 5 artists, including Jerod Dtox Davies and Jose Bware Sparks Ramirez, to paint 5 top prospects at various sites around Dallas. What particular type of art were these paintings?
Graffiti. It must be.
It is graffiti. I would also have accepted street art.
The minute that you said...
Dtox.
Yeah, whatever
Jerod
you
Dtox
said.
Davies. Well, yeah, that was the clue.
Yeah. That's cool. Dallas last year.
Last year, yeah.
Oh, I forgot about that.
Yep. So, yeah, I'm going to talk about graffiti as an art form.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I always wondered, is just one piece of graffiti a graffito?
You're 1 sentence ahead of me.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Cool.
So the term graffiti and its singular form, graffito,
Ooh, sorry.
which is rarely used outside art history circles, by the way.
But it's fun.
Yes, it is. Both derive from the Italian graffiatio, meaning scratched, as most surviving vandalism from ancient times was scratched into walls.
Oh. Kind of like what you do in a desk in elementary school.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm sure that's what they were doing. Detox.
No, not even close. Dtox and Bware Sparks.
Yeah.
No, not even close.
Okay.
This kind of graffiti was widespread in ancient Rome, and a lot of it is preserved at Pompeii, which was, of course, buried in the pyroclastic flow from the erupting Mount Vesuvius. Despite the dubious artistic merit of these ads for prostitutes, pictures of dicks, and declarations of unrequited love, they are a valuable source of information about the relative literacy of different strata of ancient society. And they are particularly useful for learning about how ancient Latin was actually pronounced, as a lot of the graffiti is written phonetically.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Because I guess, the common people didn't even know.
They weren't literate. They couldn't read, really. I mean, they knew... The ones who were doing this could write letters, and they knew what sounds letters made, but they certainly couldn't read...
It's like a little kid.
The Aeneid. Right, exactly. So it's actually really useful in helping us figure out how classical Latin was actually pronounced.
That's cool.
There are no native speakers of Latin, and there haven't been for 1,000 years. So,
right.
Yeah.
Huh.
Even in modern times, there are forms of graffiti that predate the spray-painted street art we think of today. Soldiers left their names in the European locations they fought in during World War II, and the odd meme "Kilroy was here" was particularly common in that era.
Did we talk about that in the meme episode?
You know, we didn't. We should have.
I feel like I've talked to someone about this recently. I don't know who.
I think we have talked about it, but not on air.
Oh, okay.
I think we just somehow ended up talking about Kilroy was here. I don't know why, but...
They had that bar at Indiana, Kilroy's, and that was their logo.
Oh, yeah. That's right. That was cool.
Yeah.
That said, graffiti has taken on new life as a unique art form with the commercial availability of aerosol spray paint and the development of hip-hop culture in New York and Philadelphia. This type of street art developed in the late 70s and early 80s and saw the emergence of the stencil as a principal tool of serious graffitists. This is when graffitists started to be recognized as legitimate artists as well. Early pioneers Lee Quinones and Fab Five Freddy had gallery openings in Rome in 1979. The most notable and most trivia-relevant street artist of this period was Jean-Michel Basquiat. In 1983, the acclaimed PBS documentary Style Wars profiled New York breakdancers, rap artists, and graffitists, including Dondi, Minone, and Zephyr, and is still considered one of the best examinations of the early 80s hip-hop culture. Modern graffiti ranges from simple tags, spray-painted signatures of the artist's street name, to large-scale murals, from simple defacements to legitimate high art, from messages marking gang territories to corporate advertising to radical protest art.
Remember that time we were going in the subway and we just like walked by some dude just like
Yes.
graffitiing on the wall? Like,
Yep.
it was nothing.
Yeah. Well, what were we going to do? Nothing. We were not a threat to him, so.
No, I know. It was just so weird. It was like broad daylight.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway.
It's Philadelphia for you.
Yep.
The most well-known street artist today, of course, is Banksy, the Bristol, England-based stencil graffitist known for his leftist political art, whose true identity remains known to only a small circle of people. The most vibrant center of graffiti culture today is no longer New York or even Bristol, but rather Sao Paulo, Brazil, a sprawling, largely impoverished metropolis where income inequality is the norm, and the marginalized poor have developed an innovative, diverse street art. As graffiti has entered the mainstream, it has, predictably, been co-opted by companies looking to advertise their products.
Right.
IBM launched its Peace, Love, and Linux campaign in 2001, which saw several of the street artists they had hired arrested because they apparently forgot that graffiti is, in fact, illegal.
Oh my God.
Unless commissioned by the local government.
That's so funny.
Oops. IBM was fined $120,000 in damages and cleanup costs.
Oh my God. And they had to get rid of it all.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Since then, graffiti art collective Tats Crew has done actually legal graffiti ad campaigns for companies including Coca-Cola, McDonald's, Toyota, Sony, and MTV. Despite this corporatization, graffiti, or if you prefer street art, remains mostly illegal, except when commissioned by the city, or, I guess, the NFL.
Cool.
Yeah. It's fun every once in a while to talk about a style of art.
Yeah.
All right, so you are 3 for 5, and I think you'll get this one.
Okay.
All right, question the last, sounds and screen. From 2006 to 2014, the draft was held in what New York City venue, known for its Art Deco architecture, concerts, and Christmas shows?
Believe it is Radio City Music Hall.
Yes, it's Radio City Music Hall. I was trying to think of a funny way to say that was wrong, but I couldn't think of one. Yes.
It was just so perfectly right.
Yes,
what
it's
could you possibly
it's Radio
say?
City Music Hall, yes.
Cool. I did know that. I grew up around there, so I knew people that used to go.
Yeah. Yeah, it was there for a long time.
Yeah.
Originally, I was going to talk about that Kevin Costner movie Draft Day for Sounds and Screen.
I remember. I think we saw that.
Yeah, it's actually not bad.
I think it was pretty good.
Oh, yeah, I don't mind that movie. I think it's probably one of the better football movies, actually. I know that's a bit controversial, but I mean, it's not Remember the Titans,
No,
but I think it's better.
But what is?
Right, but I think it's better than We Are Marshall, which is a grossly overrated knockoff of We Are the Titans.
Never saw it.
People really like it. I don't think it's that good.
What's that one that I never saw? Rudy?
I haven't seen Rudy either.
Everyone says that one's good.
The Longest Yard is pretty good in a bad way.
What about, what am I thinking? Oh, The Replacements.
I actually do like The Replacements.
It's funny.
Yeah. I think Draft Day is like a better, more serious football movie that understands football better.
Right.
But look, anyway, we're getting off topic. I'm not going to talk about Draft Day because it seemed a little too on the nose.
Okay.
So I'm going to talk about Radio City Music Hall.
Okay.
Okay. Radio City Music Hall has been a venue for stage, screen, and sound since its opening, though it's mostly sound now, as most events are concerts nowadays. It is part of the larger Rockefeller Center complex and sits at the corner of 50th Street and the Avenue of the Americas, known to most New Yorkers simply as 6th Avenue,
Right.
in Manhattan. International Music Hall, as it was originally known, opened on December 27th, 1932. But the venue's history dates to the early 1800s, when Columbia University purchased the area of Manhattan that we now know as Rockefeller Center. Columbia left its Midtown campus, moving to its current location in Morningside Heights,
That's
Upper
crazy.
Manhattan, in 1896.
That's crazy that was like their campus.
Rockefeller Center was Columbia for like almost 100 years.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Can you imagine?
What?
That's too much now.
What do you mean?
They would never go to class. There's too much
well,
happening there.
Nowadays, yeah, but back then, like that area, that was what Columbia was.
Right.
But they moved to Morningside Heights in 1896, which is where they still are today. Nothing really happened on the site until the Metropolitan Opera considered relocating and building a new opera house there in the 1920s. The proposed new home of the Met was too expensive for the opera company to fund, which is when John D. Rockefeller Jr. got involved in the project as a patron. not to be confused with John D. Rockefeller Sr. from the previous discussion of the Sherman Act. This was his son, who was more philanthropist than businessman.
Okay.
So Rockefeller Jr. is now the patron for the Met's new opera house on the site that used to be Columbia University. The planned opera house was canceled in December 1929, but Jr. remained interested in developing the site, and he struck a deal with what was then known as the Radio Corporation of America, later the RCA Corporation, and now nothing but a brand name owned by Sony, incidentally, to build a multimedia entertainment complex including 4 theaters on the site. This ambitious plan was later scaled down to 2 theaters, the large vaudeville venue known as the International Music Hall, and the smaller RKO Roxy Theater, both financed by theater magnate Samuel Roxy Rothafel. Radio City Music Hall was designed in the Art Deco style by architect Edward Durrell Stone and interior designer Donald Deskey. The Grand Foyer features a mural by Ezra Winter titled Quest for the Fountain of Eternal Youth, and numerous other Depression-era artists also contributed works to the venue's public areas. The name Radio City Music Hall comes from the only partially completed Radio City complex of theaters that RCA had envisioned for the west side of Rockefeller Center. Right, so the original idea was there were going to be these 4 theaters, it was going to be this huge multimedia complex, and RCA was going to be like the sponsor, and it was supposed to be called Radio City.
Oh, okay.
Then it was going to be like a piece of Rockefeller Center.
I
It was
see.
going to be known as Radio City. So that's where the name actually comes from.
Okay.
Yeah. The Hall's first show was, to be blunt, a disaster. A bloated 6-hour mess of a variety vaudeville performance with too many acts.
Oy.
Rockefeller Jr. himself apparently left early.
I mean, 6 hours? I'd leave early.
8 p.m. to 2 a.m. apparently.
That's
And
nuts.
Rockefeller Jr., who had just dumped so much of his money into this, even he was just like, nah, I'm good.
Time for bed.
Yeah, exactly. Despite this inauspicious beginning, the design of the venue was well received, and from 1933 to 1979, it ran a largely successful business premiering films alongside stage shows. By 1978, though, business had declined, and the most popular films were no longer the family-friendly fare that Radio City showed. By early 1978, the hall was in debt and was in danger of closing.
Oh no.
It was saved in March when it was declared a New York City landmark, and it was placed on the National Registry of Historic Places the following month. Since then, it has mostly focused on live musical performances, including its flagship show, the Radio City Christmas Spectacular, featuring the Rockettes dance team. It has also hosted televised shows, including the Grammys, the Tonys, and the MTV Music Awards.
Does it still host the Tonys? No.
No, not every year, but sometimes.
Now I can't remember where they host the Tonys.
I don't know, and I don't really care.
Okay. I care. I'll look it up.
All right. Pink Floyd famously played the venue in 1973, and the Grateful Dead followed suit in 1980. Artists including Christina Aguilera, Britney Spears, Mariah Carey, and probably other people I don't like have also performed there.
And I'm sure people you like have also performed there.
Probably. Can't name any, and I was reading about it yesterday, but I'm sure someone I like has performed there at some point. The first sporting event ever at the venue was a boxing card, main evented by Nonito Donaire and Guillermo Rigondeaux. Oddly, it was also the site of 6 home games for the WNBA's New York Liberty in 2004, when Madison Square Garden was hosting the Republican National Convention. And from 2006 to 2014, it was home to the best 3 days in off-season sport, the NFL Draft. Can you tell I'm getting excited for the draft?
Yes.
I'm so excited. I love it so much.
I don't. I will be doing something in the other room.
My ass will be firmly planted on the couch.
How many
Thursday
hours
night.
is this?
Total?
Yeah.
3 hours Thursday, 4 hours Friday, 8 hours Saturday, so 15?
So I need to find a 15-episode TV show that I should watch over these days.
That would work, yeah.
All right. I'll look into it.
Okay, well, I will be planted on the couch with pizza and some beer watching the draft because I absolutely love it.
Maybe I'll watch the beginning.
You should at least watch round 1 with me.
All right.
Round 1 is so much fun. Like, it's it's drama and trades and shocking
It's
picks.
just hard because I don't know any of these people.
But
I don't know anything about college football.
I know, but the commentators will bring you up to speed for what you need to know for round one.
Literally, my favorite part of any draft was that time that, what's his name, Sam, it was like a big deal because he was like the first openly gay guy to ever be drafted, and it was so emotional, and everybody was like so excited
the Cowboys
for
drafted
him. Like,
yeah,
that like had more meaning to me than just like some dude I don't know like getting excited because he got into the draft and I don't know him. Like, this like at least had something else to it that got me interested. So
yeah,
I don't know.
He didn't make the team.
I know that, but it was still like, you know, something more than just like another guy I don't know achieving his dream. Like, I'm happy for them, but I don't know what's going on.
Well, round one is really fascinating, though. Like, there's so much drama. There's all the trades and, like, surprising picks, and, yeah, it's great.
Okay, I'll try it.
All right, well, this is going to be like an hour-long episode, so we should call it here. Thank you, guys, for listening. You're now up 6-2 on the season, so we'll see if I can keep pace next week.
We will see.
And we will see you next week.
Yep.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
So if you're new to the show, here's how it works. Each week, one of us...
I'm so sorry.
Jesus Christ.
I really should not have eaten the chowder.
Well, there's our blooper.
What? Me coughing?
No, I really should not have eaten the chowder.
I don't think it picked it up, sorry.
Damn it.
I was over here. Okay.